Hello, I'm Arun Malhotra. Welcome to ET Auto Unplugged Season 2. In ET Auto Unplugged, we discuss on various facets of the auto industry. In each of the episodes, we take up one facet of the auto industry and talk to industry leader to get into depth, get an insight, and get to see how that segment is impacting the overall auto industry. One of the segments or one of the areas which is not sometimes much in focus is the concept of design, development, and R&D. Because if Make in India has to really succeed, which is the buzzword today, not only you need manufacturing, not only you need supply chain, but you need design, development, and R&D. And that's an integral part of Make in India and India to become a global auto hub. On this topic, we are joined by a person, he needs no introduction. He's a person who has been part of this growth story of Indian R&D for the last 3 decades. He's won number of awards and accolades and he's run out of even counting them. And surprisingly, his name as initials are the same as the first person in India who won the Nobel Prize in the field of physics in 1930s. And I'm talking of nobody else than CV Raman. CV Raman, who's the group executive member in Maruti Suzuki and a no person known in the entire auto industry for his wisdom, for his knowledge, and for what he's contributed for the growth. Welcome, CV, to the show.
Thank you, Arun, and a pleasure to be interacting with you. And thank you for the very kind words. Really appreciate that. I don't know whether I really stand up to that or not, but thank you very much.
No, you definitely stand up. I know you're a person with a lot of humility. So, CV, before we get to the entire ecosystem of R&D, design, development, we want to know you, CV Raman, as an individual. Right from your schooling days to the college, why you joined, what you did in college, and what was your first job, and how do you came into this field of design, development, R&D, which must have been a very nascent stage at that time.
Yeah, so I'm CV Raman, and I actually belong to Andhra. And my parents settled in Delhi in the early 50s. So I was born and brought up in Delhi. And I studied in Delhi Public School, Mathura Road to start with. And then I was the first batch of Delhi Public School, RK-Puram.
Okay.
That was way back in 1977. And that was the last batch of the All India Higher Secondary.
Okay.
And then I joined Delhi College of Engineering in Delhi University in the old campus, Kashmiri Gate. And I did 5 years of engineering. I did my mechanical engineering.
Mechanical engineering?
Yeah. And then I joined Escorts, and we were there together. We joined
40 years back.
Yes, we joined almost at the same time. And I joined as an apprentice engineer. You were a management trainee. So that's, when we started together. So you know that. And 2 years I worked in Escorts in the motorcycle division. We were in the Yamaha project. Was working on the RD 350 motorcycle, a very iconic bike, developed, of course, and I was in supplier development and doing all the part development and then also building the vehicle also. So, it was a great journey there, and of course started work on the RX100, which became iconic before I left and joined Maruti, at that time Maruti Udyog, in 1984.
So at the very early days of Maruti.
Almost the early days, yes. And the production had just started in 83, December. And it was at, we were just making about 30 cars a shift.
30 cars a shift.
Yes. So I think that was very, very early days. And I joined in vendor development.
Vendor development. But so you shifted from design development to vendor development.
Yeah. So first initial, time, and that's the time when, and we had a technical license agreement from Suzuki. We were, of course, a joint venture with the government of India. But all drawings were coming from Suzuki at that point of time. They were converted to Indian specifications. We were doing the development. And that supply chain vendor development was the start point of my career in Maruti Suzuki. At that time, Maruti Udyog. And for 17 years, I was doing that work till about 2001. And so I was more of a techno-commercial person for the initial phases of my career, both in Escorts as well as in Maruti Udyog. And in 2001 was when I shifted to engineering, and that's when the development part of the the purchasing, that also shifted to engineering at that point of time. So me and some other members were shifted, and that's the start of my engineering journey.
So, you have been always part of the engineering journey, but you laid a strong foundation. You talked of techno-commercial, you talked of supply chain, vendor development, and on motorcycles, the iconic brands, and then to Maruti, and at the initial phase. So, you've seen the entire development part of it. So, clearly a phenomenal journey. I won't talk to you about Maruti Suzuki at the moment, but the way you look at the industry, I mean, even in the last 2 decades or 3 decades, and we look at the entire concept of design, development, R&D, what have been the inflection points? Because it was very early days. I remember in the 80s used to say, we Indians do screwdriver technology, or we just fit and finish. We just put headlights from round to square. That was the sort of, the parlance which was used. So if I look at the last 2.5 decades, how did the changes come about, and what were the inflection points which made the industry change?
Well, as clearly I see it, and I'm grateful and feel very blessed about the fact that I was part of this journey over the last 4 decades, where when Maruti Udyog started, the supplier development was at a very, very nascent stage. And and you talked about screwdriver technology. Of course, and I did say that all designs were coming from the collaborators. Most of the companies were on a technical license agreement. Very few joint venture agreements were there. Basically, technical license, whether it was a 2-wheeler or a 4-wheeler. And the main thrust at that point of time was to develop a robust supply chain and suppliers community who could deliver quality, who could deliver efficiently. Productivity was key point which we had to look at, and it was a more organic way of doing development, where suppliers will get technology from partners from abroad, whether from Japan or Europe, and build parts, and then supply to OEMs. And that, I think, went on till about 91, 92. That's when the liberalization happened and the change happened. Also, it gave a lot of impetus at that point of time, that you start exporting, and the export market also opened up. Competition came in a big way. OEMs could actually now become subsidiary companies in India and not have a license or anything like that, and start producing in India. So the first phase of the first 20 years, how I look at it, was how to build the economies of scale and build quality. Supply chain was the part. And when the competition started, and then the 4-wheeler was still a very low number at that point of time, and that's post 2000. That's when the people started looking at developing the R&D capability, because scale started coming into that. Okay, and so I think also today also, if you look at, there are various types of companies who are there. One is having maybe a joint venture, they may be 100% subsidiaries, they may be homegrown Indian companies, all have their own different business model. But today what has happened is, the robust supply chain which has got built, got developed further in the next 2 decades. But along with that, I see the R&D portion also grown in the last 2 decades.
So clearly what you're telling is a robust supply chain being built up, and to the international standards in terms of fit, finish, quality came in when these came. And I think I remember, at that point of time, there were a lot of Japanese manufacturers who came in. The Yamaha, Honda, Suzuki, Kawasaki in 2-wheelers. And also there were 4 LCV companies which came in, which didn't do all that well, but they came in. And then there was Maruti Suzuki. So you had actually 9 companies with Japanese origin coming in right from 83 or 82 to 86 or 88. And they built up this ecosystem. And you said 2-wheelers, since the volumes were picking up faster, people change faster, they develop faster, whereas in this case, it took probably more time with the liberalization.
And so then, of course, after that, the European and American companies also started coming in. more Japanese companies also came in. And so I think that was the start, where competition was, started increasing. And it was not a traditional 3-4 companies, but many more companies which one had to compete with. Not just the homegrown Indian companies,
Major
but also the big three of the world at that point of time, the big Japanese companies. They all started coming into India.
But this came more in the 97 to 99, these companies. A lot came in that phase.
Yes.
The liberalization started in 91. It took probably 4-5 years these companies
for
to come
all
in.
of these to come.
To come in. So winds of change. So that was a
Yes.
major change. So government policy also changed.
Yes.
The market also grew. Economies of scale were there. More competition. So more focus on customer quality. That's part of it. Any major development which happened after 97 or something?
As I said, competition, and then also, of course, the fact that the Indian customer started asking for more, and that is, that's something which is not changed. That's the ask from the customer has been, increasing. The volumes have grown, policies have changed, liberalization has helped, and the customer, not just a small car, but a bigger car, and different types of car, different type of not just diesel cars, not just petrol cars, but petrol and diesel cars. So there was a start of that, many different types of requirements emerging. They were niche, but then they started growing, And if you look at the example, if you say that a small car was Maruti 800 was the iconic vehicle which was there at that point of time, but then it went into a little premium segment later onto Zen, and then thereafter many more competition came in into those segments and started growing some of these entry cars becoming premium and going into sedan, and that change started happening. And then what also happened was that people who did not change or whose technology did not change.
No name mentioned, but you know the name of the companies.
And I'm talking about, right? So those, started
fell by the wayside.
Yeah, they started seeing the, winds of change.
So professionalize or perish.
Yes,
that was the slogan. Which is, Dr. 2-3 interesting things. And you said the government was the role liberalizing. We used to hear this concept of DGTD, broadbanding. Fixed, even if you increase production, you have to get government permission. When did these start changing? These words are very important. DGTD, I still remember, Director General of Technical Development.
91, beyond that was when it happened, when is what I remember vaguely, that, where the foreign exchange, that component, the foreign direct investment started happening post 91. And then it became more liberalized to get investment, and also liberalized to get to the delicensing started, and one could start making, anybody could come and set up a company. Of course, there were certain rules of FDI. Of course, those have changed further in the last 2 decades. But yes, I think that was the start.
So Raman, you talked of basically that this focus from supply chain, vendor development, and then this liberalization happening and design and development started happening.
Yeah.
But did we have the people there at that point of time who had that background to take it up?
Well, I think it was a journey and there was organic and inorganic journeys of various companies at that point of time. Companies which had a base, and then they started, getting some outside support and taking consultants on board and doing development, and there were the other companies which actually started developing their own R&D base by sending people to their principals and getting trained there on product development and trying to understand the entire life cycle and start building a base of people who could then come back and then teach more people and grow that. And so it started with like examples like just changing the seat, which is a requirement. A rear seat requirement for India is very, very critical.
Very different.
Very critical.
Very critical.
Okay. So it started with that. Things like that, making the suspension improved for the Indian road conditions.
Ground clearance more.
And so those are very small things which are very requirements of India, very unique requirements, and then that started progression. And then of course building vehicles, there were some companies which built their own vehicles, and started and the customer started experiencing some of those companies products. And of course, then that's the start point of doing some minor changes, and then going on to next level of changes.
So as we were developing, and generally you need also, like one of the reasons people say Korea and Japan gained because the government gave a special focus and special thrust.
Yeah.
So there were a lot of government agencies which you read nowadays about.
Yeah.
Maybe ARI, maybe ICAT, maybe Vehicle Development Institute. So when did these institutes come, and did they have a role to play in improving the ecosystem or designing, or to ensure that they're raising the bar? Or it was just a testing agency that I'll see whether you are eligible or not eligible?
Well, we go back, then it was only ARI was one of the the only
But ARI was that old.
ARI was
Automotive Research Association of India.
Yeah, it was there since I know of.
So when was that?
It must be, I think, the 70s.
Oh, so ARI is that old.
ARI is old.
So that's very interesting to know that.
I don't recall the exact date.
But much before then, this.
Yeah, so ARI was already there as a research agency and doing testing and homologation. And then of course at that point of time, the in early 2000s, the NATRIP was started, and that's when the evolution of multiple test agencies happened. And then it took time, over a period of time, to deliver and to actually get them on the ground. Also at that point of time, the auto fuel policy started, the safety roadmap started, the emission roadmap
started. Oh, so these all started.
So they all started in the late, almost 99, 98.
So 2000 was all
so
these
around these times, the famous Supreme Court ruling of BS0 and going up to BS1 and BS2 and BS3 and BS4. All of that happened at that point of time. The roadmap for safety got built. The roadmap for test agencies, multiple test agencies, got built in the early 2000s. All of this happened at that point of time, and now what we see is a much more evolved test agencies, methodology of regulation forming, and all of that, and so it's evolved over a period of time.
It's evolved, but as one of the questions you asked for was it just testing or raising the bar or developing standards or educating you also in industry?
It's always both ways. The industry and agencies both are learning together. Because when you are on the learning curve, it's a co-creation in a way. Developing test facilities and creating the regulations. Of course, the base, was Europe for many instances, but there were a lot of regulations and changes which are done suiting the Indian requirements, environment, and test speeds and so on. The cycle for emission itself was very different from the European cycle. So those are things which are very unique for India. And of course, then the taxation thing also happened with 2007-8. I don't remember exactly.
Where
the 4 meter and the 1.2 liter and all of that happened, and 1.5 for diesel. So these were some of the inflection points for change, is what I can recall, where these policies kind of governed the way in which the product development and the India specific needs and requirements started getting built into companies' development processes.
So you talked a very interesting. One was the safety journey, one was the emission journey, one was the customer journey, and various other norms of the entire internal engine, which is not visible to the outside world, but these are important.
And so customer journey is a very important thing, because at that point of time, a car for a family in 90s and 2000s was that one car per family was the kind of thing, and today we are talking about 3 or 4 cars in a family. So I think that was just that, okay, I have a Maruti 800, I will progress to a Zen, or I will buy a premium hatch, or I'll buy a sedan, and that's one car per family kind of a thing. But today it's what we see today is totally different, and so companies had to evolve and change their product development strategies, both organically and inorganically.
But one thing which I think which is important in the Indian market is think global but act local.
Yes, absolutely.
That's I think one of the keys which you
the,
must have, because you may think anything global, but if it is not relevant to India, that's a journey.
Indian market is very, very different.
And safety journey we were talking of, I remember the old type of seat belts. What were they called? They were those typical, I would call, some people used to call them just a string seat belt. Used just for showcase.
Yeah, we didn't have the ELR at that
ELR.
point.
Not the retractable type. So from that journey, and I still remember one rear mirror, two rear mirror. So you've seen it all from BS0 to BS6 from that normal thing. So you are like the Gulzar or the Amitabh Bachchan of Bollywood. You've seen it all from 70 to 2020.
But yes, it's it's been an interesting journey to be part of that changes which happened in the industry.
So one of the challenges which a lot of people say in the auto industry is the government may bring a regulation at one point of time. The customers, since they're also exposed to global markets, they're exposed to the outside world, they go to Dubai, they go to USA, they see different things. Their aspirations also rise. But the entire concept of design and development of a product to the final day it reaches was a 4 to 5 year cycle. That's what I understand. So this must be a challenge. How did you overcome this challenge? Because you may think something is very relevant today. And government also now at least a more clear policy, but regulations come 1 year, 2 year, and then it's like the asking rate has gone up. The Duckworth-Lewis system has started. And the R&D people are in the forefront. Sales people say, "Hame gaadi nahi mil rahi," so that's part of it. So how did the R&D or the design development cope with it? So many changes, and the speed, it's got speeded up.
Yes. And yes, I think for sure the internet age, the WhatsApp age, and some of these things have actually brought customers' aspirations and thinking alike globally. And so the ask has become very, very stringent. And so the experiences which people have got, what you talked about, and the people moving, more people going abroad, and that becoming a new thing. Experience of people, and when they return back, the expectations have risen for sure from a customer point of view. And similarly, from a regulatory perspective, the infrastructure started gaining ground, and then there was also this feeling that we should come closer to the European and world global standards. We should start exporting, and a lot of things have changed, and so it is. I think it's a combination, and looking at that. Obviously, the challenge which you mentioned rightly was about the product development, how to cope up with that. I think that was one of the biggest challenges. And if you recall the 2016, 15, 16, 17 discussion of BS5, BS6, and leapfrogging. I think the industry did a tremendous job in leapfrogging in 3 years' time, from 2017 to 2030, 2020, making the regulation, making the products compatible for that, meeting that timeline, very, very stringent timeline. COVID also happened, but yes, they were this is something which is always a challenge, and trying to decipher the changing customer is one of the
very important
key challenges, and that, and you've been part of the marketing, and how the change happens so rapidly, and the ask from the market is very difficult to.
What you said, if I was to convert it into a couplet, the customer of today is कि अब तो दिल मांगे मोर का ज़माना है, एक नहीं अनेक हसरतें एक साथ पाने का अफसाना है. So that puts a challenge on you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, the other part was a vehicle at that time, as you said, you did mechanical engineering. Most people did mechanical, electrical, civil, electronics. There's nothing like software, IT, data, this thing which is there. And the automobile is changing now today. Now we hear about mechatronics, electronics, software. So how did it happen? From 100% mechanical vehicle to mechatronics, to electronics, to software. If you see 2 years back, the biggest point of discussion was semiconductor. How is semiconductor, I mean, normal person with automobile? So when did this transition start happening? And how did the industry cope with it? Because we're talking of different technologies, different from a different domain, impacting your product. And you have not done that before.
Absolutely.
So
interestingly, if you look at, what was earlier hygiene and today what is a hygiene is different. There was a time when we used to give optional, this power steering and AC used to be optional.
Yeah,
today it is standard, So
even rear view mirror, one or two.
Yeah. So, those are the things. And today we are talking about, these are all hygiene, this is expected, that this is definitely has to be there. Now, what more you can do? And today, customer is looking at things have to be comfort, convenience, connected. And so what has happened is that the digitalization of India has happened. The customer aspiration has changed. Design has become a very important aspect of that. In-car experience has become very important. Customers started looking not just one car per family, but me, myself, and what I want in my vehicle, I want to be able to customize it, and it should represent me. And so somewhere that differentiation started happening, and so that put a lot of pressure on the varianting strategy and what is required, what is hygiene, and what more can you give to the customer. How a customer can move from his house to the car in a very seamless manner, and that experience remaining the same.
So how did it integrating this technology and the back end I'm talking of?
So this is what has happened, and so over a period of time, this is what has changed, which has happened, which we talked about. But to manage that change, vehicle architecture, electrical architecture, the infotainment system changes, the display size is becoming bigger, touch screen coming into picture, and a lot of other safety systems. The and you rightly said carburetor to MPF5 to now we are talking about hybrid and we are talking about EV. So a host of technology has changed. So mechanical is the base, but mechatronics, electronics, and a host of other things, software has started taking precedence and sitting over on top of that. You require all of this, but you require something more. And that is the ask today, that how you can skill up the entire ecosystem of engineers and the suppliers and all of the people who are related to this, to that. And so I think that's something which is is happening today as we speak, and increasingly so. Organically, inorganically, people are are trying to meet that requirement. And today's vehicles today, if you see, there are if you go to a auto show in Europe and what you see in India, I mean, there's not too much of a difference.
Absolutely. Today is not much difference at all.
But 10 years back, it was a lot of difference.
To me, that's a very indicative thing what you said.
So that's something which I think I perceive that, this is something which can come very easily into the market here, provided we are able to, make it at a affordable price, because Indian customer, despite whatever I have talked about, the dil mange more, but he wants it at an affordable price. And how to bring technology which is relevant for India, which can make that differentiation is the challenge today, which all engineers have to.
Another challenge which I see, and I'd like to know your views on this, is at one point of time, being in an automobile company in manufacturing and design was the most coveted thing. Today, you have competition from consultancies, investment banking, data companies, and they, for whatever reasons, they pay higher salaries or they show higher growth path. So at this point of time, when one side you are having this dramatic change in technologies, you need the best brains. And then you have competition from streams which are not related to automobile. And I'm talking from industry perspective. Is it a challenge today?
Absolutely, it is a challenge. And that's something, and this has not changed.
So how can it change? I mean, if this is a challenge, what can be done to change it?
40 years back also people wanted to do an MBA,
But
today also, the MBA institutes have grown. The engineering institutes have tripled or quadrupled, or the numbers mushroomed, let me say. So I always say that the BE is like a more like a BA, BSc of the year at that point of time. So I think everybody has, but then the differentiation which has happened, people want to get into finance. The opportunities which are there for today's student of engineering is huge.
Huge.
And so the spectrum is wide. And so to be able to attract, people to the manufacturing, to the R&D is always a challenge. So it is about, and I believe that engineers, it's all about taking the challenge and being adapted and understand the customer need and to meet that requirement. And that's key for a good engineer, to be able to understand the latent needs,
customer and then to keep
to
changing
understand and make that. And so that passion is something which is key for an engineer to work in auto industry.
So how do you drive that passion?
So the passion is through challenge. Okay. And today, I think that's the challenge which is there.
It's very satisfying.
That is what is satisfying to the engineer, that I have been able to do that and to see my product or what I have built on the road and being liked by customer is something which is very gratifying.
You said absolutely right. Look at what ISRO has done.
Yeah.
I mean, they are competing with the world, what nobody has done.
Absolutely.
And they have done it with the same homegrown talent.
Absolutely.
And not at people at very high salaries.
Yes.
So that's an important part of it.
Very, very important. And that I think that the passion, adapting to that, being adept at certain things, learning new skills. And I feel that, over the last so many years, technology has changed. Being and, understanding that, being abreast of that, and trying to make sure that you are able to adapt to that and adapting that to your products. I think that's something which is very, very important.
Now, one other question which comes in, today we always had petrol and diesel. Now we talk of CNG, we talk of LPG, we talk of hybrid, we talk of electric, we talk of LNG, we talk of hydrogen. Now for a person, and each of these technologies are at a different stage of evolution. And some technologies may be relevant somewhere, some are not relevant, some may look very glamorous, but they are not. So as an R&D person, as a design development person, not only you have to develop, but you also have to crystal gaze. Yeah. So how do you manage this entire complexity, or how does the industry manage this complexity? Because you don't know 5 years later which technology takes the lead. I mean, you're talking of ethanol, we're talking of, the same.
I think somewhere policy does have has an impact on this, but having said that, from a future perspective, as engineers, one always looks at, from a data, from based on data, taking decisions and how to, what is going to help you make the work that happen, make it happen, bang for the buck, So if you talk about, any of these new technologies which you are talking about, what is relevant for India is, I believe is very, very important. And so from a policy perspective, from everybody's perspective, what is going to be important for India is key. So important for India is how do we keep the environment, better, how to make the environment better, go towards the carbon, neutral targets of India of 2070. Look at, different technologies, look at different energy sources which are there, which are sustainable, which are creating, which are going to help. And how can you also, I believe that if you have a target for the economy, that you want to be a $30 trillion economy in 2047 at Amrit Kal, if that is so, and you want to grow 10 times, the motorization, transport, mobility, I think is going to be a key factor to that. And so somewhere the energy is going to be a key determining factor. And so we have to have multiple pathways in a way to understand, what could make that work, make it sustainable. And I think all vectors need to be aligned. From a policy perspective, from a technology perspective, from a direction perspective, So that I think is very, very critical. And if you are able to do that, I think we will be able to meet all the objectives, because we are still on the industrialization curve. We have not done that industrialization, what is required for us to be, the third largest economy in the next, 22 years. So I think that is something, the energy need is going to be there. And motorization need is going to be there. Mobility is going to change. And it's not that an infrastructure will change. And today's mobility may change tomorrow. Tomorrow's mobility will be different, and which has to be more sustainable.
So you're talking your ear has to be the ground, you have to be back to basics, understand the customer,
all of
market,
that,
and not get fascinated or just by sheer names and some things that's happening.
Yeah. And we should not be, and we should make our own path. I think India has the potential to do that. I think that's very, very important.
So another question which comes out is, a lot of people say the COVID has been a game changer for most industries. In terms of technology or in terms of the way you look at the market or the way the products are looked of, has there been any dramatic change post-COVID, or it's the same but going at a different pace? Or some new trends have emerged?
One thing has definitely changed, which I feel is very, very important, is that we always used to talk about shared mobility being a big factor, and suddenly in 2 years, that entire thing that I think has really not, has taken a different, direction. And people today still looking for coming back to personal mobility. I think that's one major shift which has happened. Second is that India has started moving a lot, and today's young customer moves a lot and willing to, travel on the road. The infrastructure is changing, the expressways which have come up. And so the requirement of mobility of people has, metamorphosized in a way from urban mobility, rural mobility, intercity movement, off-roading and, sport, that kind of, weekend, requirement. So I think mobility is changing, and so, and you also see mobility for shared mobility also coming into a different, game.
So you can't play predetermined shots.
So
you
have to look at the entire gamut of the change.
Not an easy job. I don't envy your job or
assignment. So you have to look at all of that and then try to decipher that what is it that is going to be there. And of course, the technology on top of it is going to be always changing. The requirement of customer is also going to change. How to, integrate all of that and to make it into a good, products and, something which the customer is looking for is, I think, always a challenge. But that's where the excitement is.
So we are sitting in April 2024. If you have to benchmark, I won't say benchmark is not able to compare, in the journey of design, development, R&D, where are we vis-a-vis the so-called advanced countries which were there, Europe, USA, Japan? Where are we at this point of time? I'm not talking of now four-wheel industry. I'm talking overall auto industry.
I think there's a tremendous progress which has happened as far as R&D on-site locations which have come up here, the R&D centers of the OEMs which have come up here, the R&D centers of the suppliers which has come up, which have come up. The technical services has emerged as a big area. I think there are thousands of engineers today who are working for India and for the world.
That's a big thing.
Yes, I think that's something which is very, very promising, very, very exciting.
And it is more in cutting edge, not in the back end.
Yeah, and it's not. It's already you're doing work for Europe, US, and for startups, and I think the amount of work which is being done here and that ecosystem which is getting built here is tremendous. I think that's something which is should excite any new engineer to
the sky's the limit.
Yeah, and to come and work and create things and not just for Indian requirements but for world requirements. You see, and suppliers, OEMs, the technical services companies, they have mushroomed in terms of the number of people who are doing, and India, of course, being a software giant.
That's another thing which is happening.
That's something, and you talked about that okay, software becoming a very important aspect, because now mechanical, mechatronics, software, electronics becoming a big chunk of the work. I think that's where the growth is happening.
Great. I think India is placed in a great position.
Very, very great position. So, what we require is good infrastructure. Catch them and keep them, and give them opportunities. I always think that the scale today is available for the Indian auto industry to catch them and to keep them and to engage them and give them challenging work.
So I come to the last part of it. Yeah. You talked of how to make it, and the idea is when you talk to Amrit Kal, we need to make global hub.
Yeah.
Still, some companies are doing well, but India is still not a global export hub, whether we like it or not.
Yeah.
It is other countries. Our exports, if you take all products or all segments combined, it's nothing great to talk about.
Yeah.
So if it's to move to a global hub, one is it's a global market, it's large size. And I'll take three stakeholders who are part of the ecosystem. One is educational institutions.
Yeah.
What they should start doing, which they are not doing.
Okay. So I think that, engineering is all about experiential learning. And today when I'm, as SAE also, so we try to do a lot of student challenges. We give them, a platform where they can create models, vehicles, compete, and then,
So that's one thing.
So that's something which is there. But I feel that's not enough. How to make them future ready is going to be one of the things which we need to do.
So curriculums have to be changed? Or what
Curriculum has to change. They used to be in many colleges 6 months. I did 6 months internship, 3 months, 2 months internship in third year, in fourth year, 6 months, entire semester in the 5-year course. I think that's something which I think is very, very important. And I also believe that this cannot be done just by academics. It has to be intertwined along with the industry. Industry has to also spend resource. And the pipeline which we are talking about of talent, I think if we are able to provide that opportunity on some current projects and students work in the organizations, and that can be worked out, the terms which are there for 6 months, 1 year, or, and they come to know what is happening. The faculty also comes to know what is happening, and that symbiotic relationship can actually grow this much, much higher, is what I feel.
Absolutely right. So you need the academia interface, which is has to be. You said there has to be synchronous gear if you have to talk of it.
Yeah.
There has to be this, symphony of it,
and
not a
it should
cacophony.
Become a win-win situation.
Seamless win-win.
Seamless for both.
But are we ready for it?
They are not. I don't think today organizations and the way in which we work today. We have to then start thinking, and how can we replicate and how can we do the same thing? What is the opportunity which is available to a master's student in the US? The same Indian student goes there and works, and he is able to do that. And there is a lot of funding which is coming from the industry. And so, why it is not possible? I think maybe some kind of a policy push. In that
policy
direction.
Push, and then that meeting of minds in action, not only in words, but in action.
And that opportunity is something I think very, very important.
So
and it also gives, because today any student who comes and does a Baha or a Supra, what is his interest today? He wants a job, and post that, I think whether he's part of SAE or not, I should not say this, but that's where the challenge is, because that is the motive is very, very clear.
Okay.
How to make that motive,
So I'll come to the second part. What should government do to accelerate this process of making India a global hub, which it's probably doing at a lesser pace or they is not doing?
I think the government is doing a lot, in the sense that the PLI scheme which is there for whether it's semiconductors, whether it's advanced chemistry for battery, whether it's for the automotive components or the auto industry, all of that is for actually to make India a global hub and to be able to incentivize exports and to bring technology and being able to bring the latest technology into India, work on it, create the value add, and then export or for the domestic market, and give that incentive to the OEMs and the suppliers. I think that's a great
So now it has been taken to the logical conclusion.
It is going in that direction. But I think that we need to do a lot more. Okay. And the other thing is that how can this become a self-sustainable thing? Because there is that much a subsidy or something which can do. How we can become competitive in terms of developing the technology, and how we can be that where people will come and say, look here, if I have to develop this technology, I have to come to India. So I think if we are able to,
India is a country of choice.
Country of choice. So many of the other vectors to make it easy for companies to work and do that here, I think is something which is going to be.
So you set off, basically you need. Start with subsidy, but you need a self-sustaining
sustainable
cycle.
Model, yes.
And probably need a catalyst so that it becomes a virtuous cycle.
The PLI is the catalyst.
Virtuous cycle, and then how the quality of implementation, the speed of implementation. Absolutely. And last is, there is enough competition in various segments, two-wheelers, four-wheelers, commercial vehicles. What can all companies, they may compete in the market, do together to raise the bar? together. Leave aside their competitive differences. That's a slightly tricky question, but and I want to speak from wear the hat of an industry leader who wants India to come to the Amrit Kaal of global hub.
So I think that creating a platform where joint development and sharing of work, innovation, and IP and all of that, which would actually help in meeting that requirement. And so today, if we talk about National Hydrogen Mission, which is there, so the approach is consortium approach, how you can work together with, hydrogen manufacturer, vehicle manufacturer, all of that. I think much more of that, something more of that. If we do more of that, then I think maybe that is going to, propel in a way, is what I feel.
So Raman, CV Raman, it's been a pleasure talking to you. You have given very interesting, informative, and insightful thoughts to the entire discussion.
Thank you so much.
And I think a lot will learn from it. So it's a pleasure talking to you. I'm sure our audience would really appreciate it. I'm sure whatever questions do come, we'll get back to you.
Thank you so
much.
Thank
You again.
Thank you again.
Thank you.